Hey everybody, Adam Savage here, and earlier this year I got to embed on the set of one of my favorite shows, Silo, during its second season production for Apple TV+. And in the coming weeks, Tested is going to take you behind the scenes. We're going to meet the artists, craftspeople, costumers, and prop makers and set builders, the folks building out the incredible world of Silo. Let's dive in. Hey guys.
Hey, Adam, nice to see you.
Hello, I'm Elsa, nice to meet you.
Such a pleasure. We're looking at the classroom set?
We certainly are.
Oh, I'm so psyched. This way?
Yeah,
Indeed.
let's go.
Oh.
So this is where the fun starts. This is Apple class.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh my God. I mean, after all the steel and concrete of 18, this must have been a real vacation in a way with all this color.
It was. We've had a lot of fun in here, as you can see.
Yeah.
It's been so Silo 17 is the silo of the creatives, and we tried to reflect that in all the sets that we dressed. And that kind of particularly applies, obviously, to children and their creativity. And that's what we've tried to get over here. And also, this is very key, this room, because this is where the kids are educated, and they are educated right through their schooling time. So in a sense, they get this real affinity with this room. They really love this. And this is why you'll find this room hasn't been trashed at all. There's such a respect for this classroom. That's why it's still in this state, as if people have just left it. They've just run out. The fire bell or whatever has rung, and they've all fled. And that's something that we wanted to achieve in here, because we're really tugging on those heartstrings in terms of this being a place that of real fond memories for people.
Yeah. Well, that narrative really comes through in a slightly chilling way, because I'm not used to seeing the love of children's learning being combined with what looks like 80 years of weathering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've got all the key aspects here. Yeah. Obviously, we've got our little desk set up, so they all have a chair.
Their names on the
back.
Names
on the back. So this is little Jimmy's here. You can see that?
Oh my God.
There's Jimmy on the back there. This is his desk, and he's got his homework here. This is because of this whole thing that there isn't really much paper at all. There's recycled paper, but they're very, very short supply, any wood or paper. So they use slates, as in the old days.
Oh wow!
So this is the homework pack. So this is what gets taken home. There's a slate that should be around like this one, which is their sort of classroom slate. So they have one at school, and then they have one that they take home for their homework. And they take it in the little folders so that it doesn't all get rubbed off.
Right. And
they've obviously personalised those. But they're a sort of an issue. They're all issued with one of those, and that runs through their whole sort of schooling life. So poor old little Jimmy here, he's left his behind. No homework for him.
Nope.
So yeah, we try and tell the story of the characters in their everyday lives here as well, so that you see personal touches, you see things that they would take home. So when we've dressed residential apartments, we put things in that come from the school, so that you can actually, there's that whole sort of taking home, things that they've enjoyed making, things that they've enjoyed drawing or writing, they take that back. But then obviously here, there's a huge collection. So what we've got sort of, for example, the puppets. Right. The class they do a puppet project, and they all make their own special puppet, and this is, all 16 of them.
I mean, I think the thing that most people don't realize is there's so many layers to this set. I'm curious, when it's not just about the construction and the paint, there's also the stuff hanging in front and the furniture and how that's weathered and aged. How do you approach a project this big? What are sort of the key points you look for in order to wrap your head around a project this large?
Well, I think generally it is an awful lot to get your head around, and I think you have to come down to the storytelling of individuals. You have to think of them as individuals and think about their story and think about what it's like to be Jimmy here at school and what it's like to go back to an apartment and live the life of the silo. And if you can break it down into that sort of unit of an individual, then that helps you tell the story for the sort of the collective. So it's an awfully large subject to get your head around to start with. You come into this silo world, suddenly, it's huge, absolutely vast, fabulous, enormous set. And you kind of, once you've got over that, you then have to get into, well, these people have to live here, They have to live as you or I do. They have things that they take with them to school. They have things that they do each day. They have things that frustrate them. They have things that they love. They have things that go wrong. They're growing beans over there. They all died.
Yeah, it's not going well.
Exactly. So we've got the the poor rabbit there that,
Right,
that, that perished because it got left behind when they panicked. Nobody took it out. And, these are stories that we tell, stories within stories, really. And we've had a lot. Well, we've had a lot of fun. Haven't we?
Had a lot of fun, a lot of creativity making this set. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe you'd like to tell me also about the houses.
These are the houses we've made, which were a project for the kids through the years, and they've all got an individual house to make, and they make their own silo house as a project on the wall. So it's adding the layering of that throughout the years they've been learning in this class.
Yeah, because obviously as a visual, it's very limited with what the world that they know.
Yeah.
So one of the key things will be that their home, where they live. So that one of the projects they put together was, okay, we're going to give you a shell of an apartment, and you decorate it as your apartment is. So that's what they've done, and then we've put them all together, and they're up on the wall there. So we've done that throughout the classroom. Really, we've tried to run them as little projects. As if the whole class had taken part.
Often when I'm working on an aesthetic problem where I need coherence among a lot of disparate objects, there becomes something for me like a talisman within that project that is sort of a North Star. I'm curious if you have one in this room.
In this room?
Or just, I mean, at all, yeah.
What would be our North Star?
I suppose it's the puppets, because we see them again later in the series when Solo's been in the Legacy by himself for 35 years.
Right.
And he's then developed them, and they've become his friends in the story. So it's seeing that throughout the series.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's a child in this room.
This was his desk. Yes.
Amazing. Now I understand.
Yeah. So he's taken. So this is really the start of his creative world, really. And yeah, as Elsa said, he's taken these puppets through to the Legacy, and then he's developed them there because it's something that stuck with him as a child. So yeah, we try and tie things in that way. Obviously, in Silo 17, because there are so few people here, it's a little bit more tricky. So you're telling the story about the deceased, so we don't know much about them. So yeah, sometimes we have to build and invent the backstory.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, speaking of that, so I'm looking at the murals on the walls, and I'm curious. Do you ask painters to just do one thing on their own and not pay attention to what anyone else is doing, so it feels like years and years and years of people painting things?
It's a layering. So we try and concentrate on one area. So there'll be one area which, for example, will be the small apartments over there on that wall. So they tend to focus in on that. And then we've tried to bring in other areas where things have gone a little bit wrong. Perhaps projects haven't been quite as successful. So those have gone up on the wall. And then the teachers decided, well, I tell you what, this is a bit of a shambles over here. Let's cover that up with the houses. So that's what they've done. And then you develop that layering. And I think also that then helps with the aging of things.
And is that you two coming in here repeatedly as it's developing and looking around and being like, that needs work, that needs work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the layering. It's all about... it's all about the storytelling, and it's all about making areas work together, and that's what we try and do. We try and imagine, if we were in this classroom, if we were doing these projects, what would we need? And then we sort of go from there, and then we can set things up as if we are about to do this project. Yeah. And that really helps. And I find that that's the best way to dress, because you get a reality in your dressing. It's not just things just placed. It's things actually with a purpose. So that's what we tend to do.
Was there any aspect of this set, aside from the layering, that presented particular issues or problems that you had to solve?
We've had various issues in this one. One of them is the blackboard.
Oh, can we walk over?
Yeah, please. Let's go. And this is an interesting piece. For story terms, it's very important that we're able to reset this board. So we've had this board made. These boards are magnetic, and you can actually pull them away and then reset them.
Oh, so you don't have to erase it and redraw.
Absolutely. So that we can have that whilst one of those is being reset, offset while they're shooting.
Gotcha.
This can then be erased in action, and the drawings can be carried out, and then the other board can be brought in for the next take, put in. So you have sort of small technical issues like that things you have to come. One of the biggest problems in Silo 17 is the lighting, because there really shouldn't be much.
Right.
So we've had this whole sort of development of safety lighting / working lights.
Amazing.
Yeah, so everywhere you go into, there's something that's plugged in, or there's lighting that's strung up, as if that, these were lights put in years ago when
jury rigged on top of a failed power.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we're always fighting that, because obviously we want to see as much as we can in 17, but we're on very low light levels.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of constant battle of let's make sure we've got plenty of lights in there that could be on, because we're really hoping we're going to see all this work and all these hours that have been put into making all these props and things, and also, you know, storytelling. The register over there on the little Apple stand.
Yeah.
You know, just little details like that can, yeah, if you're not careful, they can just be missed. But they're a lovely thing to shoot. They're lovely little foreground items.
Well, that's the thing in here is that the layering goes as deep as I want to examine.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, each bit of the layering feels complete and in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in which you two both realized, like, okay, we're done?
The night before we shot
Time was the factor.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
could keep going forever, but
Right.
yeah.
I think that's what we realised, didn't
Yeah.
we? That you could just keep going on this, and
Yeah.
every project you imagined and you kind of then got made, you bring it in, and it would just fill another little space.
Yeah.
And then you need another one to go next to it, and another one, and another, and it just goes on and on and on. And you realise, you know, that the time that's going into creating something like this, because obviously this is a world of work. These kids are supposed to have been on this for years.
Right, you're layering in
We're
dozens
layering
and
in.
dozens of lives throughout. Yeah.
In a couple of weeks.
Right.
So we've got to hit it pretty quick, pretty hard, down to even having things like the desks made, you know, having all the metalwork made for the legs and things. It's a process, and it all takes time. And those pieces are quite quick and straightforward to put in place. We design it, we get it drawn up, we get it made. But then, and you kind of think you're doing quite well, and then suddenly you come in and you realise that there's nothing really that brings it to life. So, okay, now we've got to really start producing the stuff.
And you've already done a tremendous amount of work to get to that point, right?
Yeah, you've made the furniture, great. Now what about the
And it
dressing?
still looks empty.
Yeah. And then you get into these projects and it's just, one project after another, after another, after another. But the makers are just an incredible gang of people.
I would imagine as you're dressing so many different locations that you may come back to locations you've already dressed and, oh, wow, look at this, and like be a little surprised by it.
Well, it's walking in today, actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we've not seen it for a while, have we?
No,
We've not been in for a while.
It feels like a long time. It's
It
only been a
does.
couple of weeks.
It does. And it is there's something quite nostalgic about it. It feels, there's something quite heartwarming about it. I think it's...
You're right. It feels like a history is
Yeah,
here.
it does. And I think we went through it a little bit, didn't we, with delivering it. So
Yeah,
there's that as well.
yeah, right.
That all helps.
Yeah.
So it is. So it was supposed to tug on the heartstrings. I think it's tugged on our heartstrings. I think we...
Yeah, well, I mean, and I guess it wouldn't work unless it did, right?
No, absolutely.
Johnny,
Absolutely.
Elsa, it is absolutely inspiring work. It's so
Thank
lovely.
you. That's very kind of you saying. I think we've got one of the most talented teams of makers I've known working on this. Just
Turn our hand to
absolutely
everything.
fabulous.
Well, as I'm talking to all of them, they seem like one of the happiest teams I've ever run into.
That's great. Good. Well, that's very good to hear.
Yeah, they're all having a blast. Thanks to Apple TV Plus for having us on set. Silo Season 2 is now streaming on Apple TV Plus.